Hello, Amity City. You, me, and the rest of the 3 a.m. crowd. Welcome back to 87.7 FM, Amity After Dark. A few days ago, we talked about the Amity City Screeching Devil, and I got a few good tips from you guys on how to proceed with my investigation. So that's really cool. I think I'll talk about the investigation again once I have some more information. Tonight, I thought we would just talk about some generally weird Amity City buildings. Not haunted buildings, just weird ones. It'll make more sense if I start explaining. One note before we just dive into the parts of the city that do stuff. Our city was founded in 930 PD, right before the Redonian Wars for Independence. The first houses in Amity City belonged to the Aburn family. Josiah, Madeline, Mabel, and Adine Aburn. 3 of those 4 houses are still in the city. Josiah's house became Amity Central Library's western wing. Madeline's became the overnight nursing quarters at Amity General. Mabel's house became Amity Central High School, and Adine's home was destroyed in a fire, but it was originally Amity City's only brothel. However, we'll talk about that after we talk about a more simple, strange building. Since our city is as large as it is, it makes sense that some buildings have odd quirks that have gone unreported, I guess. For example, there is a building on the East Shore in Westbridge that changes color. It's an apartment building on Kent Boulevard, and if you stand and look at the building from its southwest corner, the entire world turns grayscale. I'm not kidding. I even marked the spot with red tape so any listener who wants to see for themselves can go and look. It's in such a weird place. I only noticed it because my train to the library crosses that exact spot, and I don't think anyone else even noticed. But you can go and stand in that spot, and the entire world turns grayscale as long as you keep looking at that building. And I swear, every time I've looked, I can hear the faintest music. It's like a violin or a viola. Then, the moment I step off the spot or look away, it stops. Once I read into it a little bit, I learned that the building was originally an old jazz club built by someone named Hugo Patton, but I haven't found any sources of other people noticing the building decide that the world should be a different set of colors. The architect was an odd guy, however. He made a lot of statues and buildings that occasionally had odd things happen in them, but I think that's a story for a different investigation. Something in my gut tells me this weirdness isn't the same as the rest of Hugo's weirdness. Let's run some ads, and then we can talk about the really strange one. Oh, good news. Our ads are no longer just me reading pieces of paper handed to me before I entered the booth. I'm allowed to use the pre-recorded ones now. Let's see here.
Come to the Amity City Zoo. After a year of renovations, we're open and employing a new program. For $20 per adult and $15 per child, you have access to the entire 6-acre zoo. But for just $30, you can enjoy our new immersive experiences. You can pet the zebras, experience training time with our penguins, sit with the red pandas, see behind the scenes in our zookeeper-only areas, and feed the wolves.
Faust Energy wants you to release the devil inside. This winter, try our new flavors like Brutal Cherry and Torment Tangerine. There's no reason you should feel tired ever again. Faust Energy, get in touch with the demon in you.
I'm really glad the zoo is reopening. It's always been a favorite of mine. I didn't know they had wolves, though. But let's get into some music. Let's start with Forest Whispers by Chasms. So, obviously, the building that randomly decides the world is a black and white movie is odd. But I figured tonight we should probably talk about the fifth house. And if you've lived here for a while, you know why I'm reluctant to bring up the subject. For a long time, the fifth house was just a piece of city folklore. The myth went that there was a fifth Aburn family member whose home was built in the city, but it simply vanished into the night. So, a fifth Aburn house, hence my explanation of the Aburn family earlier. However, the fifth house went from being a cute piece of local folklore to something most of us would rather not talk about. About 6 years ago, our current mayor's daughter went missing. Mayor Lassiter mobilized the ACPD, and people were looking everywhere for her, but it was like she'd vanished into thin air. Apparently her room was untouched, just a normal 6-year-old's bedroom. Toys on the floor, drawings on her little desk. The police said they found no signs of forced entry on her window or the front door, but I was in journalism school at the time, doing an internship, and I got to see her room firsthand. Like the police said, nothing felt amiss, but on her desk was a drawing that just burned itself into my thoughts. It was a house, old-looking and tall, with masoned brick walls, but beside it she wrote something. Come inside. When I told the person overseeing my internship about it, she laughed it off, so I did what I do best. I started digging. I couldn't think of a single building in the city that looked like that one. It was colonial, red brick walls with 5 windows on the front, 3 on the left and 2 on the right. And no matter how deeply I dug and how many streets I walked, I didn't see any similar houses in any of the 6 boroughs or on the outskirts of town. My ex told me to give up. So I went to the library. I started by looking through old newspapers. It's a big city. Buildings are destroyed all the time to make room for new high-rises and parks and stuff, so I figured it would be in an old picture. I think I might have read 100 newspapers. Something in me was sick. I was angry at everyone around me for looking in the wrong places or for giving up on the only solid lead anyone had found. If you could call it a solid lead. So I resorted to doing what I always do when answers are harder to find than they should be. Homeless people notice a lot more about a city than anyone else. They're like the city's personal eyes and ears, and for some reason they're still treated like... I did a lot of homeless outreach growing up, and I still always buy an extra sandwich when I stop into the bodega under my apartment so that I can give it to anyone who might need it. In a city like this, it's easy to get kicked down so hard that you can't get back up. Winters are cold here, so I try my best to keep track of the displaced people and neighborhoods I spend a lot of time in. There's one kid I rely on for a lot of information. He's pretty suspicious of strangers, but I can imagine being homeless at his age makes it pretty difficult to be anything but. If you've ever been on the Lower East Side of Hatbridge, you've probably seen him. Wild red hair, a prosthetic leg, his horribly diseased dog that I'm pretty sure is actually a fox. I've let him use my shower in my apartment a number of times, and I tend to bring him food every time I see him, so he's often willing to give me information on things. At this point, I didn't really know what I was looking for, just a vague description of a building I had only seen drawn in crayon. However, when I showed it to the kid, he just nodded and said the fifth house. I was tempted to laugh it off, but he hadn't ever given me bad information before. I asked him where it was. He led me out of Hatbridge, onto the Packfa train, and into Westbridge. Even after all these years, seeing the skyscrapers in the heart of the city out of the train windows makes me smile. We walked to the center of Westbridge, where the library, hospital, high school, and other members of the 4 original houses are, and as I looked around, he just stared at me. He started laughing, so I asked what was funny, and he told me that my eyes would never show me the fifth house. I had to let my feet find it, or let it find my feet. Then, him and his fox left. Let's get through some ads.
Widget on Ice is coming back to Amity City. See your favorite Widget princesses, villains, and stories like you've never seen them before. This weekend only, kids eat free if they wear a Princess Belladonna t-shirt, dress, or other piece of officially recognized Widget merchandise. It's fun for the whole family.
The Vine would like to invite you to its 9th anniversary party, with more girls, cheap booze, and half-off wings if you've tipped one of our dancers more than $50. There's always fun to be had at the Vine. Stop in for a show, handsome. I just advertised a children's ice dancing show and a strip club, back to back. I am the dumbest person in the entire world. This next song is one I've really started to like. Midnight Friends by Heaven Sent. After my little friend left, I had no real idea of what to do. I wasn't used to him being cryptic, and frankly, that advice sounded like it came from an old fortune-telling machine in the back of an arcade. I just kind of sat down on a bench across from the hospital. The stress started to get to me. You know that feeling when you're having a panic attack, and it feels like your eyes are dilating and contracting so fast, it's like the world is swaying? I shut my eyes and started to take deep breaths. It had been a few days since my last breakdown, so I needed to recenter myself. That's when I decided to make a strange choice. I stood up and ran forward into the street. If my friend wasn't messing with me, maybe that's how you're supposed to get there. While my eyes were closed, however, it's like the city melted away, like a curtain being pulled up on a stage revealing the set behind it. Like when the movie finally starts. It was warmer around me, and the feeling of concrete under my boots quickly became soft. I opened my eyes and, I'm just gonna say this really fast. Yes, I was having a panic attack. No, I didn't somehow hallucinate this, no matter how hard it is to believe. No, I didn't run into the street and get hit by a car or something. Please just listen to me. I was standing in a grand waiting room. Art Nouveau walls and furniture. The air was dry and smelled like violet and vetiver. It was silent. I started to wander around. On all sides of me were doors with shaped wood and glass panels depicting flowers and trees in these complicated patterns that made me feel dizzy when I looked at them. I tried to open a door with a rose bush carved into it, but as soon as I touched the handle, I heard the voice of a man behind me. I turned around, and there stood a scrawny man in a dirty suit, with pale skin and graying hair. He apologized for startling me, but for some reason I didn't feel startled. I wanted to ask his name, but it didn't feel like that was allowed. The words just wouldn't leave my lips, so instead I just asked where that door led. He shook his head and told me that I wasn't ready to go through that door, and suddenly it was like I was the angriest I had ever been. I pulled the door open and ran inside. The room was... Have you ever had a dream that you went back to your high school? Start from there, and this description might make more sense. I was inside a room, a tunnel almost. The floors, walls, and ceilings were stone concrete bricks with these rectangles of light. Without even asking the question, my mind decided they were windows. The room seemed to go away from me forever in all directions, but simply standing where I stood, I felt boxed in and cramped. I started to turn around, but the door was gone. I began to run, the floor under my feet, hard concrete, making no sound under my boots, when suddenly I must have misstepped because I heard glass break and I fell through a window. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in a basement with green carpets and old wooden furniture, like a grandparent's basement, although the air smelled like chlorine. And every time I took a breath, I could feel the walls breathe with me. I ran up the stairs out of the basement and into like a rotunda, tall white pillars all around me, a ceiling painted with murals of the sky crashing into itself. In the center of the room was a pool of water, and I threw myself inside. When I finally hit the bottom, I was dry, standing alone in an empty nightclub, neon lights painting my face, and where there should have been music was only the sound of my own whimpering breath. I knelt down and started to cry. I couldn't run anymore. I wasn't angry anymore. I was the most upset and afraid I have ever been, like my heart had chosen to tear itself in half, and every moment of pain I had ever felt rose like an orchestra to meet it. I whispered that I wanted to go home. I thought about the smell of the bodega downstairs and the sound of my cat purring. I could feel my breathing slowing down, the pulsing of the nightclub's lights fading with my fear. I thought about the warmth of my bed, the sound of my coffee machine starting. I opened my eyes, and in front of me was a door, Art Nouveau, with a carving of a maple tree. I opened the door and stepped out into the street. I looked up and saw my apartment. When I turned around, behind me was a tall, red brick house with 5 windows, 3 on the right and 2 on the left. Then it began to burn, and a flash of blue splitting apart like flaming paper. In an instant, it was gone. 4 days later, the mayor's daughter was found. She was on the side of the road. The only words she could say, the only words she can still say, It won't do to get lost in the fifth house. I still don't understand what happened there, or how to get back, or if I even could. Whatever took that little girl is inside of that place, though. I shouldn't have talked about this tonight. Good morning, Amity City. Go get some coffee. It's gonna be a long day.
Hello? Yeah, we might have a problem. The girl says she's been inside the fifth house. No, I don't know how she got in. Yeah, I'm aware the guys in research closed all the doors. Yes, sir. I'll handle it. This poor girl.
Amity After Dark is a narrative horror fiction podcast by Livewire Multimedia Stories. Claire White is voiced by Gwen Fullman.
Advertiser 1 is voiced by Theo. Advertisers 2, 3, and 4 are voiced by Gwen Fullman. Mysterious Man is voiced by Kohler L. at The Bog King.
Written by Gwen Fullman. Co-executive produced by Gwen Fullman and Elizabeth Fullman, with music by Gwen Fullman. If you enjoyed what you just listened to, please consider contributing to our Patreon. If you would like updates on this project or any of our other projects, come follow us on Instagram at Livewire Multimedia, on Tumblr at Livewire Media, or subscribe to us on YouTube at Livewire Multimedia Stories. Thank you for listening.